Good morning, LPES, and happy Friday, everybody. We are kicking off this Friday feeling in a pretty typical way. We are going to start with our mindfulness cards. Last week, we had a special guest on, and we had Mrs. Bammer pick a card, and it was Write a Letter to a Friend. Very educational, perfect for our principal to pick. Today, we're going to head out into the rest of the school. We're going to find somebody else. Let me grab my mindfulness deck here. We're going to go find another teacher to pick a different card for us, and let's go find out. Let's go see who we can possibly grab at this busy hour of the morning. Here we go. Okay, we're here with Mr. T, who's going to draw our Friday feeling mindfulness card. Let's see, Mr. T. Here you go. If you could just
Hi,
pick
everyone.
one without looking at it. Sorry, I'm not doing this very
right.
well. All right, go ahead and read it to the school.
It says, do something kind for someone else.
Oh, easy one. Thank you so much, Mr. T. Really
You're welcome.
appreciate it. Thank you. All right, folks, just like that, like magic, we're back in my office. So we just saw Mr. T pull our Mindful Morning card. Today's Mindful Morning card, simple one, easy one to do, a great one to live by. Do something kind for someone else. I have to tell you, if I can give you a little magical insight into being a school counselor, into working in a school like ours, something that happens around this time every year when we start to get warmer weather, not that we had warmer weather this week because we had our snow day, but as we head into spring and we start to get some warmer weather, what we start to see is we start to see all y'all being a little bit more comfortable with each other. And sometimes when we're more comfortable with people, then we are not as kind to them. Think about it. Sometimes the people that we're the least kind to might be our family members, like our moms or dads or brothers or sisters, because we feel so comfortable with them that we let that side of us that maybe we're not super proud of, not super thrilled with, we let that side come through in not the nicest ways. Maybe it's talking back, maybe it's starting a fight, maybe it's refusing to share. Whereas when we're around other people that we're not as comfortable with, we might be trying to be on our best behavior or to impress them or to seem like a really good citizen or a really good student, whatever it might be. This time of year, as we head into March, as we start to see changing in the weather, flowers coming up, warmer days, sometimes what we also start to see, unfortunately, is the opposite of this card. We start to see people treating one another in ways that are really not super kind, saying things to friends, talking about people behind their backs, treating one another poorly on the playground, being just not nice to each other. It's something that I think is really good to be aware of, because if we're aware of it, then hopefully we can change that behavior. We can think about it and try to think about our actions before they happen, because once we do something or once we say something, even if we apologize, we can't undo the thing that we just did. We can't erase whatever we just did or said to someone else that may have hurt their feelings. And that goes for my preschoolers all the way up to our fourth graders. So let's be mindful of that as we head into the weekend and into another week next week. All right, so thank you again to Mr. T for drawing our Mindful Morning card. I'm going to stick it at the back of the deck. So next week we can draw a new one. I like this idea of kind of having different people on each week to do our Mindful Morning card. So we'll see if we can find somebody new next week. Teachers, it might be you. Please don't turn me down if I come knocking at your door on Thursday morning. All right, so it's pretty perfect, actually, that we had Mr. T be our special guest today, because he actually, believe it or not, almost has something to do with what we're talking about today. If you ever come to my office, you maybe have seen these bins before. In these bins, there's all kinds of fidget things. We got a little poppet guy. We got these guys, super noisy, really loud, but they're kind of fun. We have lots of slinkies galore. But in one of my bins, I have something that's kind of odd that almost once every couple of weeks, a student comes across and is like, Mrs. Heffler, why do you have those? And the thing that they are is these two tiny little weights right here. Now you can see they're 1 pound weights. LB stands for pound, so 1 pound weight. And they are pretty small, right? Not terribly heavy at all. And I thought, instead of just using them like I typically do in my office, sorry guys, in my office with students, I thought today I can talk to you all about why I have these little tiny weights. And the reason is to teach a lesson. It's to talk about our brains, talk about our emotions, talk about our skills. So I want you to think of this. Have you ever heard the term growth mindset before? Maybe. You've probably heard the word growth or grow, and you've probably heard the word mind. So we can get a general idea of what it is. When we're talking about growth mindset, we're talking about ways we can grow our minds. Pretty simple, right? Now, when we have things that are really challenging, when we take a test that is particularly hard, when we are learning a new concept that is really tough, sometimes it can actually feel like it's hurting our brain. It might give us a headache. It might make us feel overwhelmed. It might make us feel frustrated or confused. All of these uncomfortable emotions that we don't love to have in our bodies. But the truth is, when we are learning something new, it isn't always easy, and it might bring on those feelings of discomfort or uncomfortableness, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Let me explain. When we talk about growth mindset, I like to compare it to using these tiny little weights. So if I wanted to get nice and strong, right? If I wanted to be really super strong and really have giant muscles and be able to lift super heavy things, and I start with these tiny little weights. Good place to start, okay? Little tiny ones. And every day, I'm just using these little 1 pound weights. And I'm not lifting them more often. I'm not changing my exercise. I'm just literally doing a few bicep curls every day with these tiny little 1 pound weights. And I do that for the rest of my life. Am I gonna get stronger? And for my athletes out there, for my friends who are wrestlers or dancers or, on any sports teams, you might even do weight training sometime. And you might be able to say, Mrs. Heffler, no way. If you're lifting these tiny little 1 pound weights and you're just doing the same thing every single day, you're not going to get stronger. Instead, what I have to do is I have to increase to build that muscle. Once these little weights get too easy to do the exercises I'm doing, I'm going to need to get some 5 pound weights and then some 10 pound weights and some 20 pound weights. And suddenly I'm going to be lifting some really heavy weights. And that is going to help my muscles to grow. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it always going to feel comfortable? No, it's going to feel challenging. It's going to feel hard. It doesn't mean you should be in pain if you're lifting weights, but it means that it's going to be a challenge. Same thing happens with our brains. If every single day, the only math problem you ever did was 1 + 1, what is it? 1 + 1 equals? Exactly, it equals 2. I really hope you said 2. 1 + 1 equals 2. Every single day, that was the only math fact you had to do in your classes, whether you're in 1st grade or you're in 4th grade. Would you get smarter? Would your math skills get better? If every single day, all you did was the same, 1 + 1 equals 2. 1 + 1 equals 2. 1 + 1 equals 2. Not only would it not increase our brain, but it also would be really boring. It would be easy, for sure, but it would be super boring. When we're growing our brains, when we're talking about growth mindset, it means that we need to challenge our brains. We need to give it tough things to do in order for it to get stronger and to grow more. Not physically grow more, our brains aren't going to get bigger, but in order for those pathways in our brains to increase, in order for them to become even more stronger and more adapted so that we're able to figure out things that we didn't know once before. We're able to get new skills that we didn't have once before. So that is the challenge. Every single time we're faced with something hard, a lot of times we want to give up. We want to throw the weights down. We want to say, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do it. It's too challenging. But instead, if we think about it like we're growing our muscle, we're growing our brain, every time we face those challenges, we don't turn away from it. Instead, we embrace it, we face the challenge, and we know that in that struggle, we are making our brain stronger. We're making our brains better. Even when we get things wrong, we're simply telling our brain, oh, that's not the way we actually should be doing this problem. That's not the way we're actually solving this. So instead of feeling discouraged and wanting to give up, think of each challenge as a new opportunity to grow your brain or to train your brain. I love the rhyming. We are trying to train our brain. All right, I'm going to pass it over to one of my favorite little videos. It's about 3 minutes long. My older students especially, I think you're going to like this because it is really helpful for understanding how our brains work. My younger students, there might be some big words in there we don't quite understand right now. That's okay, but I think you're going to still get a lot from this cute little video. And so I'll be back at the end to wrap things up. Enjoy.
So, this is your brain. Say hi. Okay, it's a representation of your brain. Brains don't have hands, they have lobes and other structures, which we'll get to. But I want to talk to you about your brain. You see, your brain is capable of incredible things. But I think a lot of times we can feel pretty down on our brains, on old Thinky Pinky here. We beat up on them, say bad things about our brain's abilities. You know, say we have trouble understanding a subject in school, or solving problems, or learning a new skill. It's easy to say, oh, I'm not smart. I'll always be this way. Hey, stop doing that. What we think of as intelligence, what we think of as smartness, is not fixed, is not stuck in one place, is not permanent. Your brain can improve. Your brain can grow. Come with me on a journey of discovery. Here we go, into the brain. Excuse me, coming in hot. This is a thing called a neuron. Oh, hey, welcome to the inside of your brain. A neuron is a brain cell. There's over 100 billion of these things making up your brain. Put it this way, there are over 13 times more neurons in your skull than there are human beings on Earth. A lot of them. They're the cells that help you think. Mind you, a single neuron, and let's call her Nellie. Hi, Nellie the neuron. Nellie, on her own, can't do all the thinking your brain needs to even pick up a glass of water. Fortunately, she's got friends. There's Dendrite Dave, there's Alonzo the axon, there's Magna Myelin, and look, little Sally Synapse! So teensy tiny. Your brain behaves like a muscle. If you're serious about lifting weights, right, and you keep it up on a regular basis for a long period of time, weeks, months, years, you're going to develop muscles. But you don't grow muscles by doing nothing. It takes effort. It takes struggle, repeated failures, in fact. You mess up, and then you learn, and then eventually you manage to jump the log or whatever problem you're trying to solve. Wait, we've lost focus here. Back to neurons. When you struggle, your neurons are struggling too, and that's important because when neurons struggle, they lean on each other. They make connections. They start to form this densely connected network inside your brain, allowing little jolts of electricity to pass down them more and more efficiently. That's thinking faster. That's your brain getting smarter. That's your brain muscle getting swole, kid. So the next time you say to yourself, I can't do this, I'm just too dense, remember that brain density is your friend. In fact, the denser you are, the more connections between Nellie and her neuron pals that you've got inside your brain, the stronger and more powerful your thinking parts become. The more you work through your frustrations with the right learning strategies, the more your neurons get more used to working together, the closer you are to being that much smarter. Now get out there and do your best. Don't give up, grow those brains, and remember, you can learn anything.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. It's one of my favorites to show kids in my office because it really helps us to understand that when we feel confused, when we feel frustrated, it doesn't mean it's always a bad thing. What it could mean is that our brain is growing these new pathways and these new connections that are going to make us even stronger and better and smarter in the future. So think of that, especially on a Friday when you have some tests coming up probably. It's a nice thing to remember, to not get down on yourself for that feeling, and instead to think, oh yeah, I'm training my brain. I'm embracing that challenge. Okay? All right, it is just about time for us to spin the wheel. So let me turn you around here. And let me get my wheel out. Sorry, friends. Okay. All right. We have our big giant wheel here. Guys, you're not going to believe this. As I was adjusting the wheel and moving my computer around, I hit stop recording. And so I just did about 3 minutes of talking to you. And there was no recording going on, which was pretty funny. So as I went to hit stop, I was like, uh-oh, this red button is not on. So, okay, I spun the wheel in that time. I'll spin it again, but it did land on one. It landed on leave a kind note for someone. Maybe we'll get the same one. Maybe we'll get a different one. This guy's a little loose. But I feel so silly because I just made a mistake, which is always good to show you that no one's perfect, right? Even grown-ups, we make these mistakes, and that's A-okay. Let's spin the wheel for the second time, even though it's for your first time this Friday. Here we go. Let's see. Time number 2. Okay. This one, we may have gotten it before. I can't remember. Honestly, my brain's a little foggy this morning. It says, play with someone new. So if we have done this one before, that's okay. There's lots of different students in each grade here. We have almost 100 kids in each grade level. So I'm sure there's still other people that you haven't played with before, or maybe you haven't played with in a really long time. This is a nice challenge for you all. So hopefully you're watching this before you go out to recess today, or before we have recess indoors, depending on what the weather's like tomorrow on Friday. And you can try this new challenge of try to play with someone new. Okay. All right, so now we're really going to wrap up. My friends, I hope that today's lesson was helpful and informative to each and every one of you, that it helped you to learn a little bit more about our brains and how they work, and to understand what growth mindset is, and to not be afraid of those challenges, especially on a Friday when you have tests, quizzes, all that good stuff coming up. Embrace the challenge, and remember, you are trying to train your brain. All right, LPES, I am signing off for today, but as always, please stay kind to one another. I will see you next week, my friends. Have a good weekend. Bye, guys.